YouTube! Today we're traveling to Grand Island, Nebraska. Grand Island, Nebraska. And in this one, there was some, I think I read that there was, 7 tornadoes in one night. 7. First off, that's insane. In one area. And number 2, those poor people. Can you, like, it's enough watching a town get hit once. I can't imagine, like, your home's destroyed and tornado after tornado just travels through. Let's watch it.
And the sun is setting on the city of Grand Island, Nebraska. To the northwest of town, and much to the surprise of residents, a massive supercell is moving towards downtown. Over the course of the next 3 hours, the supercell would pummel the city with 7 different tornadoes. Along with the insane amount of tornadoes, many of them moved in bizarre directions and rotated backwards, making this one of the most unique tornado events in United States history. This is the story of the Night of the Twisters.
Ooh, ominous. Or in that one video by June 1st, tumultuous.
The severe weather setup on June 3, 1980 was unique to say the least. When looking at surface conditions, things looked ideal for a tornado outbreak. Temperatures peaked around 85 degrees and dew point temperatures reached into the lower 70s. Throughout the afternoon and early evening, a warm front would lift through the city, bringing in the incredibly unstable environment. The warm front would also bring in very high amounts of convective available potential energy, also known as CAPE. CAPE is basically juice or fuel for thunderstorms, and basically put, the more CAPE
My man said juice. I like it.
you have in the
It's got
atmosphere,
the juice.
the more extreme things that thunderstorms are capable of doing. You typically need roughly 1,000 joules of CAPE in order for tornadoes to form, but on June 3rd, 1980, CAPE values reached 4,500. There was also a substantial amount of shear or spin in the atmosphere, making this almost a perfect environment for a tornado outbreak. So what was unique about it? Although nearly all the ingredients that were needed for tornadoes were present, there was one very important thing that was missing: upper-level winds or a forcing mechanism for...
I'm just going to be honest with you. I've seen this graph in almost every single video, and I still don't have a clue what I'm looking at right here. I don't have a clue. Like, I know it plays a significant role in the fact that there's fixed to be a tornado, but to me, it's like some squiggly lines. Is this like some meteorology stuff? Explaining like the CAPE and the joules and the spin? Let me know in the comments below.
for thunderstorms to form. When looking at the 500 millibar or upper-level winds, it was very obvious that there was troughing and strong winds to the west, south, and east of Nebraska, but not so much there. This means that even though there was an extremely favorable environment for severe weather and tornadoes,
So that's explaining the winds?
due to the lack of a forcing mechanism, storms might have not even been able to form at all. However, when we take a closer look at the upper-level winds, we notice a kink in the winds located over western Nebraska and Kansas. This is known as a shortwave trough, and although it was unknown at the time, this would be the forcing mechanism that was needed to get this event going. At 6 p.m. Central Time, and with the environment now in place for a significant severe weather event, a single thunderstorm begins to develop in central Nebraska. Just 1 hour later at 7 p.m., explosive thunderstorm development is very evidently underway. And as the clock approaches 8 p.m., the sun begins to set on a textbook isolated thunderstorm in monstrous
Oh my
clouds
God.
that is evident on satellite. One of the intricacies about this setup was that because there was barely any upper-level winds present, there was not much wind forcing the thunderstorm to move. Therefore, the thunderstorm moves southeast at a snail's pace of less than 10 miles per hour. As the sun sets and the clock passes 8 p.m., the supercell enters...
So that's the hook right there they're talking about, right? So you have the mass of the storm, you got the red, then you got the purple right there on the left. Then there's like that hook. It that's what they're talking about when they say like, the storm usually has a hook when it produces a tornado. I'm gonna pretend like I figured that out.
There's the Grand Island city limits and continues to strengthen, and at
Oh,
8:45 p.m. the first tornado touches down 11 miles northwest of downtown. The tornado moved very slowly southeast and soon thereafter began its wild track. After initially moving southeast, it turned east and then northeast before doing a complete 360-degree loop. After completing the first loop, the tornado repeated the exact same pattern and performed another 360-degree loop shortly afterwards. After the second loop, the tornado began following a similar pattern again before performing a third 360.
it's just like the Eli tornado in Canada. See, the Eli tornado was the first one I ever seen do this. All the others, like, well, don't get me wrong. You had things like the Moore tornado that did one, maybe two. But like the Eli one was very like sporadic, and it did these quickly like this one did. That's wild.
60-degree loop. However, this time after completing the loop, it began moving west instead of southeast. Meanwhile, at the exact same time and to the southeast, the storm puts down another tornado. At 9 p.m. local time, there are now officially 2 tornadoes on the ground at the same time. The new tornado is a bit different though, as in it's weaker and it's rotating backwards or anticyclonically. In the northern hemisphere, 99% of tornadoes rotate counterclockwise. However, once in a great while, tornadoes spin the opposite way. The new tornado is also moving northeast compared to the first tornado, which is primarily moving southeast. There are now 2 tornadoes on the ground at the same time, and at 9:05 p.m. the unthinkable happens when the supercell produces another tornado. There are now 3 tornadoes on the ground at the same time, carouseling around the
Yo, was it trying to just like remove this town from the map? It's just throwing the kitchen sink at them.
mesocyclone of the monstrous thunderstorm. This radar image, which was taken at the Grand Island Airport, shows a classic hook echo in the locations of tornadoes number 1, 2, and 3. The new tornado forms just to the east of tornado number 2 and is moving in a similar direction to the north. This tornado is also another anticyclonic tornado, but is larger and stronger than the first one. Shortly after 9 p.m., this photo was taken, which shows tornado number 2 on the left and tornado number 3 on the right. Tornadoes number 2 and 3 soon thereafter
Does it
begin
absorb
to make
it?
their own respective loops,
Oh.
with tornado number 2 turning to the left and tornado number 3 turning to the right. After completing their loops, tornado number 2 dissipates at 9:12 p.m., and tornado number 3 continues to strengthen and grow to a width of 500 yards as it now heads due south. Tornado number 2 continues moving due south into downtown Grand Island before making a half loop and moving more east-southeast. It continues to weaken and turn back to the south before dissipating at 9:30 p.m. directly over downtown. Tornado number 3 was on the ground for 25 minutes and traveled for 3.7 miles. This tornado caused no fatalities, but did injure 40 people and was rated as an F3.
Dude, I am so surprised that didn't cause fatalities. Number one, happy it didn't. But usually, like, if people often overlook, and I used to do this too, because I didn't know much about tornadoes. Like, I didn't pay attention until I heard F5. But like these F3 and F4 tornadoes, well, obviously F4, but like, your F2s and your F3s, man, they're still stout. You're still getting very strong winds, that are capable of, doing a lot of damage to a home. And, heck, you take like mobile homes, we all know what happens there. So for no one to get unalived is all. I'm happy to hear that. But 40 injuries, holy. And then you take on top of that like 25 minutes at 3.7 miles. This tornado was moving kind of slow. So I mean, it was hovered over top of these spots for a bit. So That's crazy. Glad no one got severely injured, if you will.
Meanwhile, while all of this has been happening, tornado number 1 has continued to strengthen and now has a width of 700 yards. The tornado's path has also somehow gotten even more erratic than it was at the beginning of its life. The tornado performs 4 more full 360-degree loops, all in the span of less than a mile.
This
After
was worse than the
finishing its
Eli.
7th and final loop, the tornado begins traveling due south into the outer neighborhoods of Grand Island. The tornado's path wiggles slightly as it moves slowly southwards before it finally dissipates at 9:34 p.m. Tornado number 1 was on the ground for 49 minutes and traveled in a straight line path of 7 miles, but actually covered the distance of 14.5 miles due to all the twisting and turning. Unfortunately, a woman was killed while trying to drive to her relative's house, and 25 people were injured. This tornado was also
R.I.P.
rated as an F3. After tornado number 1 lifts at 9:34 p.m., there are no tornadoes on the ground, and it would stay this way for another 12 minutes. As the supercell continues moving very slowly southeast, it drops another weak anticyclonic tornado at 9:46 p.m. The tornado touches down on the southeast side of Grand Island near Highway 34 and Shady Bend Road and moves initially due south. Over the course of the next few minutes, the tornado turned more southeast, then east, and then northeast. After traveling northeast for about a mile more, it dissipates at 9:50 p.m. after only being on the ground for 4 minutes. It traversed 2.5 miles and was rated as an F1. After lifting at 9:50 p.m., there's once again no tornadoes on the ground, and it would hold true.
The 4th tornado was on the ground for 4 minutes. And it was out. It looked like it was out in the fields. That's where we like them, not bothering anyone.
For another 26 minutes. At 10:16 p.m., the supercell would get its act together once again and produce another tornado.
Get its act
and this
together.
time, it was stronger. The new tornado touches down on the east side of Grand Island, in the Eagles Lake and Crystal Lake areas, and initially moves due west. The tornado quickly grew to the widest tornado of the night at 1,000 yards wide, as it moved just north of Bismarck Road. It then crossed Shady Bend and Stir Roads before turning southwest across Bismarck Road north of the Fauner Park area. The tornado continued moving southwest through residential areas until it reached the business district at South Locust Street and Fauner Park Road. From this point, the tornado moved
You guys seen that? Like, this tornado hooked at the last second so it could travel right down this street with all the houses and businesses.
due south along South Locust until it turned to the southeast a few blocks north of Highway 34. Meanwhile, as tornado number 5 nears the end of its life, the supercell produces another tornado which touches down just east of Shady Bend Road just north of Highway 34. And once again, there are now multiple tornadoes on the ground at the same time. This tornado moves southwest to near Stir Road south of Highway 34 and then turns southeast, traveling south of Shimmer Road to about 1 mile southwest of the Hall-Hamilton County Bridge. At the same time, tornado number 5 crossed Highway 34 and tracked another half-mile southeast before lifting at 10:28 p.m. The damage from tornado number 5 was most severe along South Locust Street, where homes and businesses were, quote,
Dude, it hooked right down the perfect street. That's pure evil.
obliterated. The almost 6-mile-long path took 12 minutes to cover and resulted in 4 fatalities and numerous injuries.
R.I.P.
Tornado number 5 was also the strongest of the night and was rated as a high-end F4. Tornado number 6 would remain on the ground for 7 more minutes before also dissipating at 10:35 p.m. This tornado grew to a width of 600 yards and remained on the ground for approximately 4 miles over mainly rural areas and was rated as an F2. Although tornado number 6 didn't cause any fatalities, it did cause more injuries. After this, there was another 10-minute grace period before the supercell would produce its 7th and final tornado of the night. At 10:45 p.m., the supercell produces tornado number 7 to the southeast of Grand Island. The tornado touched down just southeast of the Hall-Hamilton County Bridge and initially moved due east.
That looks like a house, like north of it. And I have a feeling this thing's going to turn right up towards it. Sorry.
In a fitting fashion, this final tornado of the night quickly began exhibiting characteristics similar to the first tornado of the night. Shortly after touching down, the tornado starts to change its course and does a loop. After finishing this loop, the tornado would go on to perform another
Don't do it.
3 loops and 4 in total before finally dissipating at
Oh.
11:30 p.m.
It was trying to, boys. Oh my God.
Tornado number 7 was on the ground for 45 minutes and was rated as an F1 as it mainly traveled over rural areas.
That's what we
And
like
with
to hear.
this tornado finally lifting, the reign of terror was now over for Grand Island after getting hit by 7 tornadoes over the span of less than 3 hours. 7 tornadoes touched down over the course of 3 hours, with multiple tornadoes being on the ground at the same time twice. Between 9:05 and 9:12 p.m. Central Daylight Time, tornadoes number 1, 2, and 3 were on the ground at the same time. Between 9:12 and 9:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time, tornadoes number 1 and 3 were on the ground at the same time. And finally, between 10:25 and 10:28 p.m. Central Daylight Time, tornadoes number 5 and 6 were on the ground at the same time. 3 of the 7 tornadoes were also anticyclonic, and all of them had extremely erratic paths. 3 tornadoes were rated F1, 1 was rated F2, 2 were rated F3, and the strongest was rated as an F4. In total,
F1. Thank goodness it didn't finish the trend there.
5 people died as a result of the tornado outbreak, and roughly 200 people were injured. The storm caused $300 million in damages, which is equivalent to $1.14 billion when adjusted for inflation.
Ooh.
The South Locust Street area in Grand Island was hardest hit, which was struck by the 5th tornado of the night, which was rated as a high-end F4. Much of the rubble and debris that was left by the tornado was placed in a landfill that now forms Tornado Hill, which is a popular recreational area in Grand Island today. Residents soon thereafter coined the appropriate nickname for the event as the Night of the Twisters. The Night of the Twisters phrase would also soon make its way into modern culture when author Ivy Ruckman wrote a book of the same name in 1984. The book was semi-fictionalized and was loosely based off of the events that occurred on June 3, 1980. The book told the story of Danny Hatch,
Yo, I actually enjoy reading a little bit. I might have to actually get this book. Night of the Twisters.
preteen and his family, and what happened to them as the event took place. The book also inspired a made-for-TV movie of the same name, which premiered on the Family Channel in February of 1996. The June 3, 1980 Night of the Twisters event was a first of its kind when it happened 44 years ago, and still is to the present day, as nothing has come close to what happened on that dreadful night in Grand Island, Nebraska. There have been some towns that have gotten hit by multiple tornadoes on the same day, but never 7 times. As if that wasn't unique enough, 3 of the 7 tornadoes were anticyclonic and half were classified as strong tornadoes. All of these characteristics make this one of the most unique tornado events in United States history, and something that likely won't ever happen again, or for a long time.
Well, number one, I hope it never happens again. 7 tornadoes in the same area over the same town? Come on, man. These tornadoes keep throwing me curveballs and catching me off guard with just how crazy they are. It was cool to see that there was other tornadoes do what the Eli tornado in Canada did. You know, they had this like erratic path and they're doing 360s and dancing around. So, absolute craziness. Absolute craziness. And you have this massive storm traveling like 10 miles an hour or less. So it's just hovering over top of this town. Just dropping tornado after tornado. And I do think that's like the first time I've ever seen 3 tornadoes down. 3 separate tornadoes down in relatively the same area. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I know in, like, the first tornado video I ever did in the El Reno tornado. Like, I know there was the main vortice and it had the sub-vortices that, like, satellite tornadoes going around it. But this one here, the way I took it is this was 3 separate tornadoes doing their own thing in the same storm. That may be the first time I've heard of that. And it's definitely the first time I've ever heard of that many tornadoes hitting the same area over and over. Those poor people, man. Can you imagine? Especially after, that F4 traveled through town, you know, oftentimes you come out, you think the worst of it's over. Well, it was even nighttime too. These people may not have even been able to see that there was other tornadoes out there, but let's imagine that they did. So you crawl out of the rubble and you look up and there's another two tornadoes dancing out in the field. That's absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Now it's got me curious, so this was in 1980. We're in 2025 right now. Has events like that taken place since, or is this like a one-time deal? See, this is what I love about you guys because, I got a lot of storm chasers, people that, live in these areas that get a lot of tornadoes. Well, once again, I'm blessed to not have to, be like my state gets tornadoes, but it's not something I've had to deal with, and hopefully I never do. But has this happened since? Even something similar, like an area getting 4 or 5, the same area. Uh, one death's too many, but the fact that there was only 4, uh, that's kind of lucky. Yeah, I mean, kind of lucky. Man, that sounds horrible. I don't mean it like that. Okay, I promise. I don't mean it like that. Everyone here knows I don't want to see anybody get hurt. But 7 tornadoes dancing at the edge of town. You have a couple enter town. Wild series of events there. Absolutely wild. All right, guys. I am cheap. Thank you all for watching. Oh yeah, shout out to. Oh my god, I wonder. Give me just a second. Let me find it. Corbotic 8097. I had my phone with me this time. Corbotic. Thank you for the recommendation. I appreciate you. If you guys do have any more recommendations, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Some of these are getting wild. We started off with these the largest tornadoes and some of the more violent ones. Now we're getting into some of these. It's crazy, man. Weird events taking place. You got 7 tornadoes in one area, anticyclonic, crazy paths taken, absolutely insane. So if you do have more recommendations, I appreciate it. But with that said, I am cheap. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. We'll catch you in the next one.